Welcome to Eritrea YouTube channel. We will shortly be joined with Professor uh, Mohammed Hassan from Belgium. We're having a little connection issues. We are going to talk about a lot of different issues and stick around, watch. Hopefully, we can get updates on what's going on in the Horn of Africa. They recently had a conference in Kenya, the Afro-Asian Strategic Studies that has just been formed by a Kenyan professor. And Professor Mohammed Hassan, Ambassador Professor Mohammed Hassan, attended that conference, did a presentation, and we are going to ask him some questions about it. In the meantime, let me just invite you to this song, one of my favorites. Welcome, Professor.
Hello.
Thank you for coming. Nice background.
Good. Do you hear me good?
I can hear you good, but I can, you can probably turn the light on a little bit so people can see you better a little bit if you have lighting. That's
Hold
that's
on.
okay though. Otherwise, it's okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, and
Thank you.
I know that you were in Kenya recently attending
Yes.
the uh, Afro-Asia Strategic Studies that just started, and you discussed about the Horn of Africa, the current developments in the region, and your topic was the Ethiopia. And we would like to talk about it. First, I would like to thank you for all the things that you do, for all the years,
Thank
for
you.
the writings, for educating people, for being committed to justice, for doing the right thing, for going out there, risking your life and risking a lot of things, for your relationship with Eritrea, for your strong bond that you created, the awareness that you created over the years. I think it's extremely admirable. We tend to kind of uh, take it for granted or just not think about it as much. But your contributions, your input has been amazing, and I just wanted to thank you for all the things that you do. And I would like for you to introduce yourself as if they don't know you, but just to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. My name is Mohammed Hassan. I live in Belgium for the last 44 years. My second country, Belgium. I'm member of the Labour Party of Belgium. I was teacher here. I was teaching, and I have created a solidarity movement with Eritrea. Some my friends sometimes go with me to visit Eritrea and to see Eritrea. And after the change, I have went to my country, Ethiopia, frequently. Now I'm retired, but I was also advisor of Mustafa Umar, who was the president of the Somali region. I was consulting with him since he came and so on. Now I have retired for a while, but I'm active and still busy with this Horn of Africa region because I have an idea, or I think I have an idea that the region people, there is no geographical difference among themselves. These are people who have been victimized by external forces and with internal agents who are destabilizing it for the last 80 years. And I do believe that it is the people of the Horn of Africa, they are willing to live together, to work together, to forge a relationship based on fraternal and equal relationship among themselves. This rich region, which is inhabited by poor people, we could have changed the situation, and we have tried every time, but the enemy from far always is ready to create an obstacle and putting a stone in our shoes not to walk properly. But I do believe that it is the consciousness of the people in the region is getting higher and higher and understanding. And we hope that we will achieve the desired goal which we were thinking about. And I do believe that it is this project to succeed is the frontline state had remained for very long time. It is Eritrea. It have protected itself. It protected its national independence despite of all conspiracies were designed against the Eritrean people and the Eritrean government with the concept of the regime change using the puppet regimes in Ethiopia, which one by one are crumbling, and the awareness of brotherhoodness and sacrifice of the Eritrean people and government did to remove one of the biggest obstacle. This is also is known by all Ethiopian people and all people in the Horn of Africa. We are trying to raise the consciousness in a higher stage to bring the fraternal, brotherly, sisterly relation among the peoples and the states in the Horn of Africa.
That's really incredible. Can you talk about the conference? What you thought you achieved? Your subject matter was Ethiopia, and one of the statements that you made that stood out for me is the you said that Abiy Ahmed is operating in a borrowed time. Can you elaborate on that? I thought that was one of the most profound statements that you made based on the statement that you gave or your presentation. Can you delve a little bit on that?
Abiy Ahmed, since he came in 2018, he had a very big popularity Uh, Somebody is ringing my door. May I open it?
Sure,
Yeah,
please.
please.
My apologies. Was just there was a little interruption. Hopefully, we get back to the conversation that we were having. He got interrupted a little bit. No, but he's back now.
After,
Welcome back, Professor.
thank you. After 22 years, there was a change happened in Ethiopia, and we expected that this change will bring a fraternal brotherhood among the states in the Horn of Africa and all the people in the Horn of Africa. Dr. Abiy, he had one of the, I have never seen a prime minister who was so popular as him. The will of the population, and particularly the will of Ethiopian people for a change, was very high, and the optimism was very, very high. But he squandered it. Almost his popularity declined in a fastest rate very soon. When I was in Addis last year, I was working in Addis Ababa, and there was elementary school students were released from the school, and the kids who came out from that school, they were shouting in Amharic, saying, Abiy the thief, Abiy the thief. I was surprised. This shows how his popularity went down, and not only down, it was very negative. Because of all the steps he have taken, it was wrong, beyond the expectation of Ethiopian people in general. And the man is very shallow, and he doesn't see beyond his nose. He is glorifying himself in a country which is totally destroyed economically. Majority of the population, they are in a dire situation. The young people, the majority of the population is those who are younger than 45. Majority of them, they are marginalized economically. They cannot build a family, they cannot help their parents, they cannot help even themselves. The marginalization is continuing in a faster rate, and the corruption and the embezzlement increased in a faster rate. And the man, he is not in touch with the masses of Ethiopia. It's a very few elite who are just entertaining themselves through lies, and they don't have any minimum or maximum program how to manage the country and how to establish a good relationship among the people. Of course, at one time we went with him, and we believed that we have to create a united front with him when the TPLF wanted to come back and attacked him militarily and so on. We mobilized, we discussed, we explained to the people through the national television and through other means and so on. But the man had his own agenda. And I would really like to talk about his agenda, because he had a hidden agenda which is personalized with him, and all his relationship he have built, he shattered it. because he thinks he's a smart one and he can trick everybody and every time. And at the end, now he lost a big part of Oromia because I advised him. I said in Oromia and the Oromos, they had three political groups. He was supposed to discuss with them thoroughly and deeply and analyze together and come with a minimum program among themselves, and then other Ethiopians also will deal with him. On the contrary, the first prisoners in that country after he came to power, it was Oromos. In thousands Oromos who disagreed with him, they were jailed in the different jails. Second, the way he was handling the feeling and the question of the Oromos, the democratic right of the Oromo people, he twisted upside down and he concentrated on promoting himself, and he had an idea in his hand which in his head which is not organic to the population. And finally, of course, we supported him in the war against TPLF when it waged against him, but once it is finished, that he turned against all people and all forces who have supported him, fought with him, combat with him, and he gave them their backs. And finally, he went in and continued his journey, and he became now in the pocket of the Emirates. And he is now antagonizing everybody in the region, whether it is Somalia or whether it is Eritrea or all other states, including the Ethiopian people. So
How
one
do
have
you
to.
how do you envision? Sorry, how do you envision the change in Ethiopia is going to come? That's going to transition Ethiopia into a different reality than what it is today. Considering that, one of the things that you talked about is that he went against the Amharas, he went against Eritrea, he went against Oromo, against all the main populations. And one thing that you can touch on too is your relationship with Mr. Mustafa of Somalia, which is your background, and he said that you advised him. Now he seems like he is totally on his side, on Abi's side, and if he can, touch on all these different things, I think it would be great.
I think I will start with the statement of Mustafa and what Mustafa said. Mustafa, of course, he was ordered from the center because Dr. Abiy, he needed a support and he needed also a support to come from the Somali community. First, they have sent journalists to the region and they tried to talk to the people, and the people have rejected it. And they said, no, we will not give any statement and we are against. Finally, they have put pressure on the president of the region. And the statement of the President Mustafa, it was a very, is walking in a difficult road. He never mentioned who are the people who have signed. He just only spoke about any kind of economic relation will only help the Somali region. That is what he said. Of course, in the beginning, some Somalis, they were angry on him. But once they start analyzing his statement, they have understood in what situation he is. He never said or mentioned Somaliland or Somalia, or never even mentioned Ethiopia. He said this is an agreement between two, he said, without mentioning. So he was walking in a difficult road. I can understand him. But the people also now start understanding that they don't want to have a conflict with this lunatic man. And our main objective is that to keep our peace in our region. As you know, that more than 70% of Ethiopia now is in a military conflict and it is out of his hand. To tell you or to give you an example, Oromia is about 21 zone. This, and from 21 zone, 18 zone is out of his hand. And the three remaining even is contested. He is not controlling it properly. As we know also, and we see that big part of Amhara region, it is out of hand. The offensive of the Amara people now is becoming stronger and so on, and they are even taking cities one over another. His army is literally is defeated, you could say, in Amara zone, and they are some are surrendering and some are running. And literally, the Amhara region, you could say also, it is out of his hand. The other region is Tigray, which is also is not under his control. So when you calculate, more than 70% of the country, it's not in his hand. In fact, finally he became a mayor of Addis Ababa, you could say. He himself is suffocating in a very small place because his constant mistakes he was doing, and he's igniting conflicts among the people. He have no project for now and for the future. His main project is that to stay in power. This is the man in a country where big part of the population is marginalized, and he wants to build a palace of $16 billion. Here in Belgium, there is one of the popular journal published and showed that the condition of the people, how in a miserable situation, they have no health system, they have no jobs, their children are in a miserable situation, and so on. The economy is collapsing, the inflation is very high. And then they put his picture and said, this is the man, he wanted to build a palace in 9 billion euro. And it was in the front line, in the front page. It is a popular journal of Belgium, a Dutch speaking journal. And in fact, it is not only one time, it is twice they have published it. I have seen also on the German television when he visited Germany and with the consultation of the IMF there, when President Ruto of Kenya was also there and so on. The German television made an analysis on him, putting his picture and put also the picture of the palace he wants to build. And they were showing how the population is living in a terrible, miserable situation. They said, this is the man who's leading a country which is economically totally bankrupt. The population are in a miserable situation, and he wants to build, and even showed the parks. They showed the planning of the building of his palace and so on. And even they went further. They said he is even idiot than Bokassa of Central African Republic, to remember the public. So his praise for him here in Europe is very negative. And when you check also, you know that Europeans, most of the time when they travel, they check their Ministry of Foreign Affairs opinion, because it is they wanted to know the country they go, whether it is safe, it is possible to walk around and to go to the different places they wanted to see. When you look at the Belgium Foreign Ministry report and you go to the website, it is there in Dutch and French. Literally, they say don't go to Ethiopia. It is a red zone. It's
Wow. And Ethiopia has been traditionally a country for tourism and everything. Um, there are two concerns that come up to mind when you talk about he has lost control of the country. Um, the number one question is there any kind of a unity among all the different factions in Ethiopia that could um, help make the transition possible in Ethiopia? Second, if his center is in Ethiopia, and I mean in Addis, and he is isolated even by Europeans who really want Ethiopia to be what they want it to be, a center of influence for them, as they have done for years. How do you think that's going to manifest? I think those two things are of great concern, and the questions that come up, especially in the Eritrean circle, um, whether Ethiopia is going to be able to withstand all the pressures that are taking place right now.
it's a very good question. As far as Europe and particularly the bilateral relationship with the European states, it indicates that is when you look at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, all of them they advise not to go to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is not a safe place. And these countries in the past, it was a huge number of tourism was coming from these people from these countries. Now they are advising if you go there, it is our embassies cannot help you. You take the risk yourself. But we warn you, this is the early warning we have, and it is the country totally is not safe, including the capital. This means that tourism is collapsed. So the income of tourism the country is getting, it is totally disappeared. Secondly, even investors who wanted to invest, their banks and also their ministry advised them this is a country of risk. Whatever you invest, you will not have the harvest. The country is collapsing and it is in a civil war situation. That's why I say here one have to understand and have to make a very good analysis, particularly among the Ethiopians, to understand and to forge a fraternal relationship and remove this man and establish a longer transitional government.
Is
The
there a
thinking of
possibility? Is there a possibility of
they,
that happening?
they have to think if they have to think they have no other option. In Ethiopia, at this particular moment, Ethiopia is in a situation of a volcanic situation. There are a lot of volcanoes. They are ready to erupt. And if a job is not done, these volcanoes will erupt. It have already three, four of them, they have erupted. And the remaining will erupt and will bring the country in downfall. And probably the country also will have a very big genocide can happen, a lot of killing among themselves, and so on. And nobody cares about this country whether she exists or not, because it is the forces who used to feed it in the past and pamper it, they themselves are declining in the while unipolar world is declining, and they have their other interests and other geographical zone they are concentrating in this. They have the problem of Gaza, which they didn't succeed. The greater Middle East is in a very big, deep crisis for them. And for United States particularly is that this part, if they cannot continue because they consider the Arab and the other oil is theirs and they wanted to control through that oil European Union. That is why they have destroyed the pipeline which is coming from Russia to Germany was destroyed. It was $10 billion was invested on it. They have ignited the Ukrainian war, which now they used the Ukrainian people as a cannon fodder. 10 million Ukrainians have left their country. More than 50,000 young Ukrainians have perished in this war. Now Ukraine is not able even to fight. They are imposing also to recruit, even kidnapping young people and women from the street of Kiev and other areas. And the war in Ukraine literally is defeated, and Ukraine cannot stand up. They might pamper it for a while, but they have used as a cannon fodder the people of Ukraine. And Russia is very careful because Ukrainians are cousins of Russian people. They have a deep historical relationship. And Kiev is a very important city for both Russia, for Russians, and for Ukrainians, not only as a city, as a holy city. So that is why the Russians are not very hard on attacking and killing Ukrainians. Sometimes Ukrainian soldiers who are wounded, they were taken or captured, PWOs by Russians, and were taken to hospitals, treated properly, and so on, because this is a false contradiction created by a very small clique on the top, the neo-Nazis, and of course, this will not change the relationship, the fraternal relationship among the two people, Russians and Ukrainian. To come to my country, I think Ethiopians and all of us in the region, we have to study thoroughly and understand the thinking of this man. My understanding is that this man, he's a tap dancer and he thinks that he is a clever, he can use everybody. When the TPLF attacked him and he ran to Eritrea and the soldiers, the 8,000 soldiers went to Eritrea, treated properly, fed and clothed and so on, and the 100 missiles that the TPLF sent toward Eritrea, in fact, they invited Eritreans to come into the war. But his understanding is simple that if Eritrea, he thought that Eritrea and Tigray they will fight and they will exhaust themselves, and he will be from that the strongest one in the center. He doesn't see that he was saved by the alliances which is created. Otherwise, he didn't had an army, he didn't had a security, he didn't had anything. In fact, he himself, he went to the parliament of Ethiopia and he made a speech in the time of the war saying that 80% of the generals in the Ethiopian army, they were from Tigray. 60% of colonel and lieutenant colonels, they were from Tigray. The remaining fighting force, 50% from major down, they were Tigrayans. So in fact, the TPLF, when they went to Tigray and debating among themselves for the last 2 years, before they started the war, attacking the remaining army in Tigray, their analysis toward him, they were very correct. There is nothing in Ethiopia. If they had, without attacking Eritrea, if they had marched to Addis, they could have removed him and killed him. Their biggest mistake is their analysis on Eritrea was very shallow and very poor. So from that point of view, they thought, even CEO was speaking in the Tigray television in Amharic, saying that it is the young people of the Tigray of Eritrea have left Eritrea. Eritrea now is weak and it have a weak army and so on. It is delusional. From this perspective, they developed two wars simultaneously. They believed they can fight two wars against Abiy and against Eritrea. And their biggest mistake, strategical mistake, never understood Eritrea. And finally, by inviting Eritrea into the war, they were decimated. And probably, I'm sure, privately now, they themselves will say this analysis was wrong. And they were surprised themselves to see that how Eritrea is stronger. In a very short period in the first war, almost 75 to 80% of their combatant, their force were decimated. But Abiy, he thinks he is smarter here. Here that Eritreans and Ethiopians have to understand. Abiy's vision is very simple. Let Eritrea and Tigray or TPLF fight in Tigray, and both of them, they will exhaust themselves because the war will continue for a very long time. While he is sitting in Addis Ababa comfortably. But when he saw the situation, you could see in the time of the war, when his partners and the Eritreans told him, don't enter in Mekelle, he did it because to complicate things. Secondly, is that when the TPLF did their adventure to march toward Addis Ababa, and then before that, they told him, look, these people, we know the pattern of their thinking. Now they might also try another war. He didn't believe, but they did it. They captured Wollo. They destroyed a lot of Amhara region of Wollo. They killed the cattle, raped women, burned schools, infrastructures, and so on, and they reached until Kombolcha. You could see this narrow TPLF group that they used also Tigrayan origins who have been born in Waldia, Dese, Kombolcha, Bati, which most of them they have never seen even Tigray in their lifetime. They use them as a fifth column and they put them in the front line. And then finally, when they were defeated, these people became in a problem and they start running to Tigray. And now they came back. Of course, they don't have anything in Tigray and they have lost big part of their property and their businesses in the area they used to live. It is thanks to the Wollo people, they didn't take also a revenge against them because of their cultural background and so on, and understood that they were used by external forces. The other is that the TPLF went into the Afar area, destroyed everything, what exists there. They went into the mosque, they drank, they pissed, and so on in the mosque, and so killed a lot of Afaris. The small things exist there also. They destroyed it, vandalized it, and so on. In fact, it is an army of vandalizing and stealing and putting all the goods toward the Mekelle. But finally, also, they were defeated. They didn't succeed. Thanks to the Eritrean support, the Afar people also are saved. What Abiy did, Once this war is over, and finally, when he also sabotaged the last war, and he signed with the South African agreement, and then came to Nairobi. In Nairobi, also they cancelled and so on. He thought that it is, and he says this himself, the remaining TPLF army must be used against Eritrea, and it must be used also against Amhara. The Amhara Fano had stood with him and fought in the front line with him. Immediately after the South Africa Pretoria Agreement and Nairobi thing, he turned against the Amharas and he said, I have to disarm Amharas. And here is that he ignited another war, and the Amharas refused to disarm because it is they see there is a conspiracy from his side. There is a problem of Walkai Tsagade, which was not resolved. It had been one time an Amhara region was taken by TPLF, and a lot of other contradictions. Finally, the people rise. They say no. They rise in two things. He was not reading what is happening in Amara area the last 5, 6 years. Majority of the Amara people, they didn't want to live as before. And they have seen that it is the so-called Amara prosperity, or yesterday called Amhara organization, which is attached to the TPLF. They are fed up of it. They say these are mercenaries, and they don't work for the Amhara interest, and they wanted to remove them. From the beginning, that consciousness was developing in every single minute, and he was not reading. His reading on the ground was very poor. And finally, the Amhara people revolted, and they called themselves Fano. Majority of them are young people, and they said, "Well, we don't want it to be a colony of anybody, and we wanted to defend ourselves, and we wanted to have a new Ethiopia on the basis of equality of everybody." Now, is the whole region is out of his hand. In 7 months' time, his army crumbled and is crumbling every day. So this man is a very shallow. His understanding of politics and strategy is very poor. He is a very self-centered man. He doesn't care. And now, of course, he extended himself until Somalia and Somaliland, not because he had an ambition or something. It is because the Emirates studied him very well and understood all his characteristics and his weakness.
We'll
So they
come,
under,
we'll come back to that, but just to stay on Ethiopia, um, you have a division between the Tigray and the Amharas, the Walkite being central. There are talks that there is some attempts being made to reconcile the two, for them to work together, at least to help in the transition of Ethiopia. You also have the Afar people that went through hell during the TPLF, and also they have a long-standing difference with the Somali people. And you have the Amharas that have had differences, and especially, questions about Finfinne, Addis Ababa, that being the center of Ethiopia. All this contradictions, plus the Somali Oromo dynamic. How do you think that's going to, play out? How do you see the relationship between Afar and Somali, between Somali and the Oromos? And it's particularly the most important one, I think, is the Amharas and the Oromos.
very good. First of all, neither Oromo region nor Amhara region nor Tigray is in his hand. He have no control on this. So the dynamic, what is happening in Tigray, in Amhara region, and in Oromo region, it is taking its own life, and he cannot determine the future of the Amhara region. He cannot determine the future of the Tigray people, and he cannot determine also the future of Oromo people. The man is isolated, and he have no any influence to, as I have told you, from the 21 zones of Oromia. He only have a control maybe of 3 zone, and from this 3 zone probably maybe 50%, and it will not even reach 50%. So his opinion now is no more viable, and the issue comes to the second level. One is that the Tigrayan people first they have to resume and their own debate, and they have to discuss what brought them to that. They have their own homework. They have to finish that homework within Tigray, and they have to come with a new program, and they have to say a cut who brought them to this situation. There must be justice also in Tigray. Who brought the people of Tigray to this situation by making antagonism between the people of Tigray and the whole region? That have to be addressed, and that I leave it for the Tigrayans themselves to discuss and to come to their sense and try to bring a solution for themselves. Second, Tigray is destroyed and there is a famine in Tigray. This is an organization which have been established in 1975, struggled for 17 years. It took power for 27 years, and final result was famine. What kind of calculus you can calculate? And it is very big number of the youth of Tigray have been killed and wounded and became disabled. Now Tigray, it is the poorest and even poorer than before, and it came now to the pre-1975 situation. For this, I advise brothers Tigrayans to discuss thoroughly and to say from where this virus came, what is how the Tigrayan democratic question have been reversed into one time to dominate the others, reversed at another time to be an agent of external forces who are very far away from our region. And now the result, it is Tigray is destroyed. So they have to debate honestly and thoroughly, take their time, and then they have to analyze also their relationship with other people and with the Amharas. That it is, instead of seeing the majority of Amhara people as an enemy, Amhara people are the closest people to them. They have to discuss with them, they have to rectify their mistakes, and they have to debate with the Amharas themselves also. Tigray and Amhara, what kind of Ethiopia they want, how they are going to deal with the others. The second thing is that the Amharas and Oromos must have also a dialogue. There is a historical contradictions, and how to resolve that contradiction and to come in a speaking term and working together. Anyway, all of us, we are very poor, and the Amhara people and Oromos, they didn't benefit anything on 27 years of TPLF rule and 6 years of Abiy Ahmed rule. Despite that, it is the majority of the youth is suffering, have no perspective. Some are joining the struggle, some are leaving the country in masses. The other is the southern people. The southern people, they constitute about 55 nationalities, big and small. Even though they were the biggest economy of the country, 55% of the economy comes from southern people. They also have to discuss and see what kind of home all of us Ethiopians can rebuild in the framework of a regional stability and work also with the population and the people in the region and bring a new understanding. So my appeal to all of them, it is okay you are struggling today, but your maximum struggle must be to bring a transitional government where everybody, all forces who have a stake in that country, they should be invited. This is to understand in 1991 when the military regime collapsed, there was a hope of a new start. Even though in that transitional charter, certain political parties have been participating, but they also excluded other political parties and prominent individuals who have a view. Finally, the TPLF used that, and it used its military capacity, and it imposed that it is the national army will be the TPLF army, and then finally start eliminating other forces one by one, and it dominated the power for 27 years. I think that kind of trick, it cannot work anymore in Ethiopia, and it cannot be acceptable by anybody. Therefore, I suggest, and my understanding is, we have to go back uh, to a longer time of transitional government. And this transitional government, all forces must be allowed without excluding anybody, even if there is one individual who haven't. Let them debate and know each other among themselves for a very long time. Let it take even 10 years. I don't mind. But once they debate and understand each other, build confidence building among themselves, know each other history, know each other psychology, and so on, then they can come and draft a new constitution which fits for everybody's interest, and then organize an election or whatever it is, and establish a new Ethiopia in the region. They
Do you
have
think
to.
do you think there's a possibility of that happening?
I don't know. They are human beings like me. I think that they have also head like me, and they will think. And of course, from outside, it looks like it's impossible. Yes, Ethiopia is in a volcanic situation, comrade. Volcanic situation, and there is a lot of volcanoes in that country. Some of them they have erupted, and still others who are ready to erupt. So if we don't stop this eruption of a volcano and try to bring a civilized way of solving the problem, and I think the actors also, they will lose if they don't think in this term. No other force now alone can come and dominate the other. It will only trigger a harder civil war, and nobody will benefit from this civil war. And it will be a lot of killing and genocides, and this will bring even the situation to a worse situation. And it will allow also to other forces to support one warlord against another warlord, and so on. And we will interrupt like the Sudanese situation, or at one time Somali situation, and so on. So Ethiopians have to be very careful and to think now, to think very deeply, and they have to minimize their contradictions. There are contradictions, but some of the contradictions are democratic. It can be resolved. It is a contradiction among the people. But there are also other contradiction, which is very dangerous one. A contradiction, one is far from the enemy, which is manipulating it from distance, and it is agents, those agents who had always been agent of external forces and brought war and misery to the Ethiopian people. So the forces, they have to identify and sort out the contradictions and mobilize on the basis of that. One, sort out the contradiction among the people democratically, amicably, and understanding it in a wider sense, and try to minimize this ethnic tension, and try to understand. At the end is that the purpose is to build a new home to everybody, where everybody can feel home and can work together and build the economy, improve the life of the majority of the Ethiopians. Of course, if it is the Ethiopian elite, sometimes they only see themselves rather than see the majority of the people of Ethiopia. If they think from the masses point of view, among the majority of the people of Ethiopia, there is no a real antagonism. All of them are poor, all of them are marginalized, all of them are in a very bad situation. So, to solve that, those who consider themselves actors, who have taken the tag of the in the name of the people, they must be very wise. Very wise, otherwise they will burn everything, and they themselves will not achieve anything. And probably that Ethiopia will face a very long civil war. I wish that doesn't happen. I appeal to Ethiopians to think broader, wider, and be mature, and not to see from only the elite class point of view. It have to be seen from the masses point of view. The majority are poor. They have nothing. They don't have hospital. They don't have clinic. They don't. Their children have no jobs. Life is expensive. They cannot afford. Elderly, they have no any protection, and so on. Children, pregnant mothers, and so on and so on. So this is the major factor which can bring all of us together, and then we can work all of us together, And debate, there is no problem with debate, even if it takes 10 years. The people of Ethiopia are most important for me, rather than it is a small clique who just wanted to grab the power and then continue the same line. And I hope that Ethiopians, they will come to their sense and be modern in a way of thinking. If a genocide happens there, nobody will cry for them.
I,
Nobody.
I think there is another element to the points that you raise, which is you have Egypt with its own interests, long-standing interests on the Nile. You have now United Arab Emirates taking a very, very active role, not only in Ethiopia but in Sudan. And the situation in Sudan is pretty bad. But if you add Ethiopia to it, you're looking at a vast area in the Horn of Africa, and in Africa in a mess, in a quagmire, in ways that we've never seen it before. This is going to be a generational type of an event if that is to happen. And you also have, the geopolitical dynamics that takes place between the Russians, the Chinese, on one side, and the Europeans, the West, led by the United States, pushing for their own interests. And all this are just, it seems like they're coming to a head in Ethiopia and in some ways in Sudan, but mainly in Ethiopia. And how is that going to impact to the kind of dynamic that you were talking about, the inside dynamic that you were talking about? So, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Anyway, in fact, in concrete, the one who is administering or not administering, ruling Ethiopia is not Dr. Abiy. It is Mike Hammer. And Mike Hammer is not a sophisticated man. He did the same situation in Congo when he was in Congo, and he recycled now as an special envoy and a very shallow rural person. I don't think he have any understanding of the history of the continent and in specific the understanding of the Horn of Africa. Putting him aside, the other so-called partner, who read and understood Dr. Abiy cleverly, is the Emirates. Emirates is a very small power with a lot of money. Behind it is other forces. The one who's dealing with this project is a Palestinian man called Mohammed Dahlan. Mohammed Dahlan, he was an intelligence officer and he was the chief of the security of the PLO after the Oslo, but he is a Mossad man, and Palestinians suspect him for killing Arafat. And finally, when they discovered that he is an agent of Mossad, he ran away to Israel. And after that, he is recycled, and now he is the advisor of the Sheikh of Emirates. What is the Emirates' interest? That we have to know very clearly. Emirates, when you take Dubai, the population is only 750,000. Can you imagine? When you take all the other Emirate, nine small feudal states, there might be some millions, but most of them are foreigners. This country, after the 70s, it get a huge wealth and it became a rich country. But the man who is leading it is his reasoning like Nero. He believes that he wanted to create, in his head, he believes that he wanted to create his own empire. The first step of his empire is to control all the ports in the region, from Dar es Salaam until Port Sudan. If it's possible, even Port Said of Egypt, to control it. On the Asian side, all Yemeni harbor ports like Hodeidah, Maha, Aden, and Makalla in Hadramaut. So what he wants is that to connect all these ports, and Dubai will be the hub of all these ports. That is one of his ambition. The second ambition is theft. Theft, in a sense, is uh, stealing African golds from everywhere by smuggling. And once their appetite became very big, the Emirates built one of the biggest gold refinery in the world in the Emirates. The purpose is to steal all these golds, bring them, melt them, and keep them. And we have seen their behavior is they supported the rapid deploy force in Sudan. Is not because they like them, but because that force also have mines in Darfur. And they have produced until recently more than 90 ton of gold, which is smuggled to United Arab Emirates. By extension, that United Arab Emirates also, which the Israelis developed, and behind them United States, a project called Abraham. Abraham project, it is symbolic, means that Arabs and Israelis, they are brothers, they are son of Abraham. This is a joke. And from there to build from Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, passing through Jordan until the port of Haifa of Israel to provide I call it the Arab oil is a dollar oil. It is an American oil. So to bring and to give, to sell and make Europe dependent on this oil. So they envisage United States in her program, which is she's the main architect of this Abraham program. First is to create an atmosphere and integrate Israel in the region with the Abraham program. And Emirates is the one who's pushing that. From that perspective, Chad opened an embassy and so on to convince Arab and Muslim countries to integrate Israel, and Israel becomes the hub, the political, the military, and so on in the region. This had collapsed with Gaza resistance, and that will not happen. But the other agenda, the major agenda behind it, which United States is pushing, is to make sure that Europe will be dependent on their oil, not the oil in the United States, but this Middle East oil. That's why you see, after they destroy Iraq and so on, they have 9 military bases in Iraq. I'm sure one day they will be chased out as they have been chased. They have occupied the oil area of Syria until now. There is a theft. They are stealing the oil. It is, and they export it themselves illegally. Then it is Syria Sea. They also discovered a lot of gas there. They wanted to dominate that. But the main purpose is to exclude Russian gas and oil and Iranian gas and oil not to reach to Europe.
So it
In
comes
that
back.
way,
So it comes back to the geopolitical competition to stop China, is what you're saying,
not
and
only
Russia.
China, to stop also Russia. So Russia cannot deal or cannot export oil to Europe and gas. So that Europe will be dependent on this oil, and that which means Europe also will be dependent on United States, and the United States can use Europe as for all other adventures they wanted to plan. And I don't know for how long they will succeed this. I'm sure the population in Europe one day they will be conscious and they are because it is they are the one who are now paying the Ukrainian war, and of course they have enlarged the NATO, Finland, Sweden, and so on. In Sweden now they are terrorizing the population by saying that Russia is going to invade us and so on. We have to prepare for military things and so on. The leadership in these countries who came, they are very narrow, very not sophisticated in comparison with the leadership of Europe before them. So to come to our region, of course, thanks, Gaza destroyed everything. All their hegemonist plan was destroyed and shattered by the resistance of the Palestinians in Gaza. And that project also, which is called Ben Gurion project, collapsed. It's not possible. Now I read in New York Times and so on that even the American army and the American intelligence are saying Israel is not able. It is more than 90 days, and it is their army is exhausted. Most of them are reservists. They commit suicide. They are not able to fight anymore, and so on. There is an exhaustion. There is an economic crisis also, despite that United States is subsidizing. There is a very serious as economic crisis in Israel. A lot of middle and small businesses are collapsing, and an economical crisis also touching the Israeli people. I'm sure once they come out of the illusion, then it is the economic hardship. They will see it and they are facing it. To come to our region, that it is the Emirates, as I have told you, that it wanted, kept Abiy in his pocket. They knew that it is he needs a small perfume. He's not a person who can dig deeper. So they said we will give him some money to build his park or to build this, but they wanted to use part of the airport of Ethiopia to bring weapon to the rapid deployment force in Sudan. That is the main purpose. But Abiy now is in bed with them, but his situation is very bad, and I don't think he can survive very long time. And if Ethiopians read what is in the wall, they must organize, they must be in speaking term, whether they are in diaspora or there are elements who are inciting ethnicism and extreme ethnicism to create a contradiction among the people. This is to put sand on the eyes of the majority of the population, that to create Oromo Amara contradiction and tracing all the grievances, attach it to history and so on and so on. But that is over now. And I think they have to be very rational and clever. Otherwise, they will lose their country. As simple as that.
Obviously, there is uh, this move towards Africa to try to control Africa because the European economies are declining. The Russia U.S. Contradiction you were talking about, conflict you were talking about earlier in Ukraine, all that is pushing the focus away into Africa because they want to work with the African economy. The Chinese and the Russians want to develop the African economy so they can create their own markets here. And in relation to Ethiopia, um, what can other Africans do to stem the kind of issues that you're talking about? How can we help Ethiopians really come to terms? This is going to undermine the future of your country, whether you're Oromo, Amhara, what have you. There are people that are trying to incite this conflict, but how can we, how can you come together and at least come into some kind of terms of conversation, because it doesn't seem like there's any kind of conversation going on between the Oromos and Amhara, at least publicly that I'm aware of, between the Afars and the Somalis, between Tigray and Amhara. Even though there is a need to do that desperately, there is no platform for that to happen. So, what role can Africans play? The African Union, as we know, IGAD, as we know, is irrelevant because they have been compromised for a long time, and they don't really have the structure to be able to deal with these kinds of things. But the agenda that you started with the Afro Asia studies, strategic studies program, that conference that you did, how can that kind of uh, uh, development help the Ethiopian situation?
Very good. It is the Afro Asia think tank. Uh, the major principle is to build a confidence building between the peoples of the Horn of Africa and beyond on the Africa and in the world. Uh, we want to invite scholars, prominent people from everywhere, and specific also from Ethiopia, from all different nationalities. It was our first meeting. It happened in Nairobi, but we were planning also to organize that conference in the near future in Asmara in Eritrea. We will invite all those who are concerned about the region, particularly Ethiopians, Eritreans, Somalis, Djiboutians, Kenyans, Ugandans, and other prominent African progressives. to come and to discuss the problem that we are facing in the region. But above all is also the Ethiopians themselves, they must think to organize their Ethiopian conferences outside and invite everybody and listen to the opinion of everybody and debate and discuss, because it is their own interest. It is their own country is in the verge of collapse. And if it collapses, it will never come back. And there will be a lot of killing. That's why I'm appealing to all Ethiopians, wherever they are, leave aside their petty contradiction and see the bigger picture and come and discuss among themselves. Because the situation in Ethiopia, there is no economy in Ethiopia also now. As I have told you that Oromia, it's out of hand. Amhara region is out of his hand. Tigray is out of his hand. The economy is totally collapsed. Maybe the external forces, those who think that it is, we will use Ethiopia as a stepping stone to dominate and so on, now they are also weakened. So I don't think you could see that they themselves, they are slowly keeping at bay. And I thought is their understanding is, if we cannot dominate, let it collapse, because they don't consider us as a people and a human being. Let it collapse and let them kill each other, and 10, 20 million people will die, and we will see. But it is up to the Ethiopians now to think rational, to save themselves and to save their people and to save their country, and envisage a new vision and stop and come out from this narrow thinking and think rational, progressive, democratic. And then if we change the system of one man, in fact, he is a mayor of Addis Ababa now, we can establish a long-term transitional government, debate, and so on, to heal the past wounds, the present wounds, and then build a new charter, a new constitution to go forward. That is one. The second is we have to build also a regional understanding. You cannot resolve the problem of Ethiopia without having a regional understanding. That the people of the region and the states of the regions, they are our brothers and sisters. They can support us. They can intervene. They can also contribute in this situation. If we have a regional understanding, we can resolve the problem of Sudan. We can resolve the problem of Ethiopia. We can resolve also the small problem Somalia have and other, and we can work all of us together. This is a region which have a huge human resources, at the same time a huge resources, but it's a rich region inhabited by poor people. And just to transform this, we need peace, negotiation, discussion, confidence building, and we have to open our hand to everybody. And I appeal on this using your thing that it is all Ethiopians who are listening to me. Please be rational and democratic, and think also that is we are not dangerous people. We are in danger. That is the situation. The slogan must be: we are not dangerous people. We are in danger. If we are in danger, we have to save the situation. That is what my understanding, and that is I'm campaigning on that matter.
I think it's really admirable. The statements that you're making are really important, that every Ethiopian should heed. Uh, you kind of infer that Eritrea is going to be the path. I think the next conference, based on my understanding, you just made a statement that you want that to be in Eritrea, and I think that's an excellent venue. The reason why it's an excellent venue is because it's going to invite a lot of Ethiopians to come in a safe environment where they can actually discuss their situation freely, and hopefully they come to some kind of terms. Is there a timeline for that, or is there anything working to make that happen? Because I think that seems to be the path forward.
The timeline, it will be decided in 6 weeks' time, uh, or in 2 months' time, because I will be in Asmara in 21st of March, and I will discuss also with the authorities there. Then we will appeal. It is the man who is responsible. Also, he is a Kenyan, Professor Abdul Wahab. He will be also there, and we will discuss with them and we will explain to them. And then after that, we will make it public.
That is really awesome. In the meantime, before we get to that point, um, one individual is asking, what can the diaspora do to move things forward? And I think that was my next question. And I think we need to have these conversations on a much larger scale, uh, as often as possible, to create awareness. Because I think, like you said earlier, that is what is missing: awareness. We're not dangerous; we're in danger. I think that's really a slogan that all Africans need to embrace. And can you add to that?
I think the Eritrean diaspora can play an important role. In one is that it is to raise and to explain to the Eritreans themselves, because Eritreans have paid a price for the change the last 6 years. And they might be disappointed. The expectation was not high enough, but it is Eritrea's contribution is not one-time contribution. Eritrea is an important country in the region and an important vision, because it have a vision of the region. That's why Eritrea is saddened what happened in Sudan, despite the advice was given always by the Eritrean government to the Islamists, but they have never listened and they break that country. The same Eritrea also had always explained her view and understanding uh, what kind of Horn of Africa have to be, because Eritrea had a policy which is called good neighborhood. You cannot live in a bad neighborhood where there is a gangster with a gun and threatening every family in that area. We need a good neighborhood understanding, and that good neighborhood understanding is the understanding of Eritrea. So the Eritrean diaspora have to promote a good neighborhood, despite of the setbacks sometimes we face. Our road is marked very clearly. It might take time, it might be tiring, it might be sometimes annoying, but we have no other option. So that good neighborhood, that is why this new think tank Africa Asia, the main purpose of it is to promote good neighborhoods. And to promote good neighborhood, you have to bring the people of neighborhood to know each other and to sit and talk, that they are human beings, they are the same, their interest, their feeling, and everything so on is the same. So the Eritrean diaspora, because of it, is organized this, and it is they should extend, invite Ethiopians of all walk, discuss with them, talk to them, build with them a confidence diplomacy, discuss with them frankly, honestly. The Eritreans and Eritrea is part of the region, and it is all of us. It affects us if there is a problem, and I think the old chapter which existed. In fact, for me, though, that old chapter ended in 1991. We should have worked and developed in 1991 this good neighborhood. We could have achieved a tremendous situation. But somebody infiltrated and stopped and found an agent among us and reversed what we were thought. And it took us more than 27 years. That is one example. The second is, again, we thought, all of us, a new good neighborhood. But again, it is somebody Brexit again, because he was an agent of external forces. He is not interested on Ethiopia in the region, and he's creating a lot of trouble in the region. It is on behalf of somebody else. It is not the interest of Oromo people. It is not the interest of Hamara or Somalis or other Tigrayans or other people in. What we need is that a cooperation and peace, working together and concentrate, because we have lost a lot of time, and we have to reverse that thing. And this must be that a new country and a democratic,
And
that is it. We have
if
to,
you
yes.
if you want to take a break, you can, just have a drink of water, just to get
Yes, I want, my battery is getting low. I will put it good.
okay. So I think what you just said is really extremely important, and also
Why this battery is not working?
make sure to like and subscribe the Eritrea YouTube channel,
Yeah, okay.
and so we can bring more people, talk about a lot of the different issues in the Horn of Africa, in our region, the geopolitical developments in our area. Our area is one of the most critical areas in the world, and it's facing tremendous challenge. And I think we need to have a lot of conversations in order to be able to somehow make a difference. Uh, Professor, you were talking about, just making sure that we come together as people, good neighbors. Those are the kinds of things that you are talking about, and I think that's a very, very important message, and I especially to the people of Somal that are extremely upset about what's taking place in Ethiopia, and the language that we hear is a little bit harsher. Eritreans are very astute politically, and we are a little bit reserved in terms of how we communicate with Ethiopians, because that relationship is extremely important, and it took a long time for it to develop. Now you have, the Somalia situation comes up, and people are very angry. The way that they are talking about the situation is a little bit. It could be a source for incitement. And how do you think we can deal with that? As coming from the Somalis, you can understand that they're extremely angry, and the Somalis have faced all kinds of issues because of Ethiopia. The 2006 invasion of the TPLF in Somalia is one example, and now Abiy Ahmed is really infringing on their territory in ways that they think is extremely offensive, which it is. And how do you think we can communicate that with each other and them with Ethiopians and overall to make it work for us?
Very good question. First of all, the majority of the Somali people in Somalia, they don't understand what happened to TPLF. Suddenly disappeared in front of them. And secondly, when you tell them Tigray is pre-1975 situation, they don't know Tigray, these people. So to raise their consciousness, TPLF, which one time invaded you, created havoc for the Somali people, also again against Eritrea, then again, and first of all, also against all the people of Ethiopia, where they are now. That will be a very good lesson to explain to everybody. This is the force believed that to be the strongest Tarzan in the region. And in one of their understanding, when they waged the war in 2000 against Eritrea, and when you read the plan of the invasion, It is very, very, very a fairy tale, but it is, you will be surprised because they really believed that they will defeat Eritrean forces and they can go to Asmara and overthrow the government. And even their plan, it was so precise in the sense that they wanted to enter Asmara on the 23rd of May
Uh,
and to reverse 24 May Independence Day. Look, the thinking. And then by that, de facto, they want to put a puppet regime in Asmara because they have defeated. And finally, that it is Assad will be with them. There is no need for a war in Assad because the army will crumble. They have taken over the capital. And these people, they really believed that. That is why they started the war in two lines, one through Badima, another one through mm, the other border.
Buri.
The Bure is the last one because that's when the two line collapsed and they didn't succeed. They start with Bure and they were decimated.
Okay.
But the second psychological makeup is they believed that, according to their theory, that Shabia is a very strong army and a very strong organization, according to them. Therefore, if we defeat Shabia and reverse big part of Eritrean independence, all forces in the region, they will panic and they will inaugurate us as the kings of the region, emperor of the region for that matter. And external forces who are very far and wealthy, they will shower us with money. But this is a children fantasy. This is, you see, the level of the consciousness of the leadership of TPLF. And their masters really believed. They gave them satellite cover, diplomatic cover, name it, money, and so on. It collapsed. That is a good lesson that to explain. Eritrea will be a case study to explain and to make all the people of Horn of Africa aware. The second point is it was a physical war turned into destabilization war. Propaganda, destabilizing, economic sabotage, sanction, removing the use, even collecting Eritrean currencies. The Sudanese and the Wayane had a lot of billion of the Eritrean currency to kill it. The Eritreans dealt very clever of it, Secretly, they just changed the currency and it collapsed in their hand. It became a paper. So the thinking in Eritrea, this united, it is a central government who survived because of its understanding the quality of its understanding of the conspiracy. It saved also later on the region. That is why we have to make the debate opener. And the Somali people, yes, they are very angry, and we will deal with them, we'll explain to them, because they were also isolated by warlords for a very long time. Now is the openness came and so on, and it reached the level that Somalis cannot remain as before, which is a positive one, and they start walking slowly, properly, and they are climbing. And suddenly this man comes in and he ignites again Somali nationalism, which he made a favor for Somalis by involving. It is not the project of Ethiopia itself, it is a project for United Arab Emirates because
Do
they
you think
just pay him.
do you think the Ogaden situation is on the forefront because of it now? Is it back to what it used to be? Do you think there's going to be a movement that's going to impact the future of the Ogaden, the Somali portion of Ethiopia? And on top of that, how can we communicate this to the people of Somal? What is the avenue? How do you think Ethiopians can communicate? People like you can communicate to the people of Somal what's going on.
First of all, Somali speaking people inhabit the biggest horn of Africa. When men speaks about Horn of Africa, the biggest part of Horn of Africa are Somali speaking areas. They live in Somali Republic, and the biggest region in Ethiopia is the Somali region, geographically. They live in Kenya, in almost 40% of Kenya is inhabited by Somali speaking people. They live also in Djibouti. Therefore, living in such vast area and probably a good number of population, why Somalis have to be narrow? Somalis, there could be a factor of peace in the region. And that potential we have to cultivate and explain to the Somalis. Don't look inward, look outside. You live in a vast area. And in economic sense, in a political sense, in social sense, much better for you to have a greater Horn of Africa. Somalis now, they are the biggest traders in Kenya. They have advanced. They are in Uganda. They are everywhere. They became globalist Somalis. So the old thinking now for the Somalis, it doesn't work. The market is bigger for them, and their market is beyond the Somalis. Because of this understanding, the Somalis can understand the concept of bigger Horn of Africa. We want our Oromo brothers, Hamara brothers, and the others to think also in a bigger Horn of Africa. The bigger Horn of Africa, it is the best for all of us. It will create the biggest market, to use a capitalist term, all of us. Now, when you go to Kenya, you will be surprised at the economic base of the Somalis in Kenya. They have taken over all the businesses of the Indians who had existed there. They are the wealthiest class.
How
So
do you
they
see
don't.
the East African Economic Community? Uh, I mean, Somalia becoming part of the
Yes,
East African Economic Community. To the conversation that you're having, how do you think that's going to impact it? And
Somali business.
what's also the dynamic? How did Somalia become a part of it when it's part of the Horn of African community? And what what is behind Kenya's agenda to involve Somalia in that?
Kenya have no agenda. Is the Somali business people have agenda? There are Somali business people in Kenya. They are strong economically. There are Somali business people in Tanzania. They are in Uganda. They're in so on. So they need more spaces. That's why they have opted to integrate Somalia into Eastern African Economic Commission. It is their interest. The Somalis now, they don't think in terms of very, very narrow way. They think, then geographically they have expanded. This is the consciousness, the new consciousness of the Somalis. When you speak with the Somalis, first of all, the Somalis have adapted and learned a lot of languages. There is a huge number of the Somalis who speak Swahili, and Swahili is spoken in that region. So it is very easy for them. Secondly, Tanzanians, Kenyans, Ugandans, they know Somalis from the 60s. So they are part of that psychological makeup. In that sense, I can understand that they want to. It is easy. They speak the language. They do their trade. The transportation from Mombasa until Malawi is dominated by Somali companies.
Wow.
So they have more than 700,000 trucks. They are traveling everywhere. So for them, is the sky is the limit. The second is that Somalis, as you know, the pastoralists, they have no border in their thinking. For the pastoralist, is the most important thing is peace. Peace is the factor of development for them. When you listen Somali language and the way they say hello to each other, it's like when they say hello to each other means is tell me, is there peace from where you come? Peace is a very important, vital thing for them. Once you have a peace, they will go. That's why they developed these hawala banks and so on and so on. And the concept of capitalism is based on trust. And all this hawala business of Somali hawala business is based on trust. Nobody steals from anybody, and there is no document you have to sign. So the confidence building, the tradition of long business they had before the colonial forces came and so on, that tradition, it gave them a comparative advantage, and now they became good business people. And in business, is theft is forbidden because it breaks the whole business and breaks also the confidence. So for the Somalis to explain what happened in Ethiopia, it's not only them are the victims, also all the people of the Horn of Africa became a victim of a minority clique, including the people of Tigray. Now, when I explain to them the situation in Tigray, there is famine, and the government of Tigray said 10 days ago 800 Tigrayans died by hunger. They
Wow.
cannot understand. They said, what is it? After ruling 27 years, looting 38 billion dollar. I don't know where they took it, or banks robbed them. I don't know. The situation of Tigray shows that it is the policy of ethnocentric understanding of life. Tigray is an example. It became a university. Anybody wants to understand that in a multinational country, you try to promote ethno-nationalist movement, you will only have an ethno-fascist. And that's what happened to TPLF. TPLF could have forged a national alliance in 1991, build a regionalist concept, work with Eritrea, help the Somalis to negotiate among themselves and come into term, and in whatever form they create their own states again and do business. You know, Mele Zenawi, when he was getting angry on the Ethiopians, he said, I will bring the Somalis. He means the Somali business people. Somali business people, they went to him and they said, we want to do business. He was afraid that it is they will swallow him. So Tigray and the suffering of the people of Tigray could be a good lesson for all the people in the Horn of Africa. I don't wish to the people of Tigray to happen this, but it could be a good case study to show the narrow you become, the result of it, narrow ruling class who have no strong social base and organic relationship to the masses in Tigray, it brought a disaster. It created a disaster. The fraternal relation between Eritrean people and Tigray was shattered by them.
And I
These
think
crazy
the
people.
and I think the geopolitical interference that the TPLF created had lasting impact. And I think the reason why the Mike Hammers, Washington was able to get involved post the Biden administration's election was because of the cracks that the TPLF created and the agenda that the TPLF pursued, and the Biden administration came back and wanted to do the same. And Abiy Ahmed was basically forced to embrace that. And so that brings me to my next question, which is how can I think the Somalis are doing a great job based on my observation and in the West, especially in the United States, lobbying Washington to make some impact. They are extremely well organized. How can we, as Africans, the people from the Horn of Africa, I know you're doing it through the conference, but abroad, how can we take part in educating our communities and also lobbying collectively in order to be able to impact change in the United States and the West?
First of all, it is Ethiopia for a very long time. extremely influenced by external forces, particularly the elite. They didn't decolonize their mind. And one by one, they became agent of external forces, and it became a tradition. But that tradition brought the country into the verge of collapse now. Nobody can continue like that. Ethiopia will disappear. And every Ethiopian in his heart and in his mind, honestly, he knows that Ethiopia is in the verge of total collapse. So we have to appeal to them and alarm them. We cannot continue the old road which have destroyed us and created a lot of turmoil in our country. This consciousness must be raised. And there must be a serious debate among the Ethiopians. Of course, among us also there are agents who are only interested to be a parasite class connected to external forces. This also have to be identified and have to be condemned, and we have to struggle against them. In general, that it is all Horn of Africa people have to fight against these agents. These agents, they bring fire to our countries, and then they created havoc in our countries, and we suffer. That consciousness must be raised, and it should be one of the norm of understanding to reconcile in Ethiopia and build a new Ethiopia, new basis. It should be one of the criteria. We don't want agents. The agents, they should keep their hand out of us, because the agents are only individuals and they have only individual interest. But we want to have a collective interest of the whole people of the region and a collective interest of whole people of Ethiopia. I don't think there is a serious antagonism between Oromo people and Amhara, between Somali and Oromo and Amhara, or whatever it is, and so no. These people are, all of them are poor. All of them have suffered. We destroyed, or we lost an ample time of more than 80 years, while other countries are walking. We are the worst in Africa. In Africa, to a certain extent, an integration happened. An integration among their elite, among the ruling class, among the business people. But we entered into compartmentalism. There's an apartheid type of system. Everybody is alone, and everybody is looking his market for himself, and so on. And in reverse, instead of democratizing, solving the nationality equation, we reversed it into a Bantustan system, and we divided everything except the air and the wind. And because of that, that it is a generation which is now 40 years old were brought up by that, and it is a false consciousness. We have to fight it. We have to educate. We have to create a debate, and we have to discuss honestly. I don't see why me, as a Somali living from a biggest region in the Horn of Africa, why I have to be a narrow nationalist. Now, why? It's not in my interest. My interest will be to live with Oromos, Amhara, Southern people, and so on. But I live in a very vast area. So I have to think wider. So the concept of this secessionist or concept of me versus other must be reversed. What it brought to Tigray. Tigray is an example. So all Ethiopians have to study that. What they brought to Tigray. Nothing, zero, negative, disaster.
Um, before we end, I would like to maybe touch upon the geopolitical developments that are taking place in Yemen. How you think that's going to impact? I think, based on my latest information, I think the United States and the West have stopped bombing in Yemen. Um, how do you see that playing out, impacting the region, Eritrea, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Yemen, and Sudan, and to a certain extent, Djibouti? One thing that I found very interesting is the foreign minister of Djibouti on his BBC interview crying, don't, don't bring your weaponry here, then bring your vessels here, ships, warships, and attack Yemen from here because we're going to be here and we don't want to be attacked. And it seems like they have actively been bringing all these different forces into Djibouti, and all of a sudden they are crying foul. I don't understand that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, if you can?
I think nobody will win against Yemenis. Yemenis are the same like the Afghanis. All empires tried to colonize Afghanistan. And to give you an example, and I've come to Yemen, the three British Afghan War, the last one happened in 1918. To invade Afghanistan, Britain brought 720,000 soldiers. Anybody reads on Afghan history is there. The Afghanis at that time, they don't have a lot of guns. They defeated Britain. That's why Britain accepted and recognized Afghanistan as an independent state. Yemen was never colonized. Even the Ottoman tried, they didn't succeed. So to have war with Yemenis is exactly to have war with like Afghanis. You will never succeed in Yemen. You will only lose. They will exhaust you. Their country is mountainous, never colonized people, ferocious fighters. The external force always will get exhausted and leave. Anybody touches Yemen pays the price. And those who doesn't understand the psychology and the history of Yemen, they will fail. That's why now maybe they are advised and they are retreating. I mean, bombing Yemen, it doesn't mean anything. They bombed them long, for years. Maybe they are bombing the same place. But Yemenis, you cannot exhaust them. This is have a very long history, very strong people, a strong memory. You will not succeed. And I'm sure they will stop bombing now because it doesn't have any meaning. It will only make Yemenis angry. And then they will attack you again.
How do you see the Yemeni Saudi situation working out or not?
The Saudis made the young man and so on, these young people, they don't know history. They made a mistake, they bombed Yemen and they didn't succeed. And then they got frightened and they stopped. And instead of the money and the budget they have spent it in Yemen, they should, if they invested it in Yemen in economic terms, they could have won the heart and the mind of the Yemeni people. They squandered it and they didn't succeed. Emirates intervened and they were defeated. So Yemen is not an easy place you can walk easily, bombing them and killing their families and so on. No. Americans know, British know. But Britain, because it is order, she's the small dog of United States. So wherever United States goes, she go. Every war United States waged, Britain is there. They have participated in all American wars. But Yemen, the region, particularly the greater Red Sea, Saudi Arabia and others made a mistake. made a mistake. Yemen should have been part of the Gulf Council. Of course, demographically is very big, historically is very big country, very strong people. You cannot manipulate them. The others are only banana republic. So Saudi Arabia was better have integrated Yemen in the Gulf Council instead
So,
of. Hmm,
but very interesting that you raised. I just want to add. I didn't mean to cut you off. You're talking about the reconstitution of Yemen now. Now that they are, it seems like that they are very empowered, and also in the same light, can you say the same thing about Somalia? Somalia, based on what the Abiy Ahmed did, and Yemen, based on what Washington and Saudi Arabia did, it forced them to reconstitute in ways that they are going to be uncontrollable from this point on. Would that be a fair assessment?
yes, Somalia economically is one an integrated country. Politically, they are in the process of bringing back in the state. The misunderstanding of TPLF and the misunderstanding of Abiy and other forces on Somalia, they don't read history properly. You can't destroy or a state can collapse, but a nation cannot collapse. The good example is the Polish state. The Polish state by three forces, the Habsburg, the Prussian Germany, and Tsarist Russia, invaded Poland three times and they divided and the Polish state disappeared for 135 years. The Polish state you see now, it is came back in 1918 because in a state it can collapse, you can divide them, you can, but a nation you cannot kill. Somalis are a nation. They will come back. They might walk slowly and so on. They will come back. The loser always will be the enemy who wanted to do to disturb them and to balkanize them. It's the same like the Yemeni story. Finally, the one who came from a distance, he will be the loser, and the consciousness slowly will grow of the population and will defeat you. This as simple as that. So Somalia now is working to find herself in, in a state in whatever formula, but nobody can stop that. That is it. That is those who are shallow from very far. In fact, thieves who wanted to steal quick and run away. A thief have no long-term analysis. It's only things how to steal and run away. So time is always against them. That is why now they stopped bombing Yemen. They knew that the more you bomb them, the more they attack you. Yes, you will only strengthen them. Now they have burned, I think, a ship today. Yemenis are because they don't have fear. The psychology of fear doesn't exist. They
I
were not
think the West is.
domesticated.
I think the West is completely disconnected from the realities in our region. They are very short-sighted. They think that they could put pressure and ensure the collapse. And I think Eritrea should have been a good example for them, uh, not to pursue this avenue. They have been doing it for a long time, but I think we are reaching the end of it. And I think Eritrea's role is still unexplained to the rest of the world. But
That
I
is
think
true.
it's extremely, yeah, it's extremely important. I don't want to. There are a lot of issues that you and I can talk about. The Horn of Africa, Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, the dynamics in Sudan, and how that's going to impact. I mean, there are a lot of issues, and I would love to be able to continue this discussion. Hopefully soon again, and
Thank,
maybe bring in a couple more people, and just expand the discussion a little bit further in order to create awareness. And and I also have formed a WhatsApp page. And you're not in it. I would like to add that, to add you in it, to make sure that we keep the conversation. A lot of the people that were in the conference are part of that uh,
okay, there is no problem.
community. Community. So, at the end, is there anything that you want to say to kind of summarize everything that we talked about?
I, one thing I would really like, and our Eritrean comrade also can help us. The majority of the population in Ethiopia, they are younger than 40 years old or 45 years old. Uh, a big part of them, they have no knowledge of their country and they have no knowledge of their neighbors. And one of the misguided propaganda which was inculcated on them the last 22 years and before the military regime, the distortion of history of the region, the comparative advantage that the imperialist forces from distance they got, they found that individuals who grow up with a distorted history, I think if we can work together to rectify this distorted history which existed for almost 90 years, that the people can know the real history and we raise them on that basis. That will be the basis of confidence building and creating fraternal. That everybody comes to the lesson and understand. There are there some attempts. The existence of Eritrea by itself, it is a rectification of history. On this, I think we can work together. We try to explain as much as possible and break this distorted history which is written by external forces and bring the population in a speaking term and cooperation and build the patriotic sentiment of Horn of Africa, the greater Horn of Africa sentiment. And thank you. I will leave you.
I'm the one who thank you for all the things that you do, and I definitely believe that we need to do more writing. Don't forget about this book right here, "The History of the U.S. and Eritrea," to counter exactly the to make the exact point that you made right now, which is to really correct history. And one of the things that I found amazing when I was writing this book is now the facts are out there for
Mm-hmm.
everybody to see because of the Freedom of Information Act in the United States. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of what they did behind the scene
Yeah.
to change history, to make history, is written out there. And all we have to do is just make sure to put it together in an honest way so people can learn, especially the young, the people that you just mentioned right now, the 45 and younger that have absolutely no idea about their history that is being manipulated, especially by the TPLF. Now, there's so much distortion that we need to actually spend a little time to ensure that history is put together in the way that it should. And I thank you. Please subscribe to Eritrea YouTube channel. Go to Nafasit Post newsletter. Look at my articles. I'm actually going to post an article that you sent me about maybe 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, an interview that you did. It was about Somalia, and I think it's extremely important. I'm going to share that with you, and it's going to give you a pretty good information about the things that we're talking about today. Is something that was there for a long time, and uh, Professor has been working on it for a long time, and we're going to be able to share it. So we will have the same understanding. So thank you for being here. You have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. The same for you. Thank you.